Part 87. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. John Word. Chapter 861. Chapter 861. Sunian left in a rage. But Sunian had just finished speaking. Lee Baiken pushed her away directly. That's right, I just pushed it away. By the way, I'm sick now. Don't come close to me. It will be bad if you get infected by me. You'd better leave. Originally, he was suddenly pushed away. Sunian was still a little confused. But he laughed when he heard this. Lee Baiken stretched out his hand and lightly slapped Sunian on the forehead. What do you mean? I'm telling the truth. If both of us get sick, what will happen to Mobao? Mobao is so young. What if our parents are not with him and he is scared? Don't you think it's a little late for you to say this now? Sunian felt slightly unconvinced. This guy is really a bit ignorant, and it's not right to care about him. Obviously you hope I can come here, but you pretend not to care. Why haven't I noticed that this man is so hypocritical before? Lee Baiken. Just like that, Lee Baiken wanted to say something more. But Lee Baiken's words haven't been spoken yet. Sunian kissed him directly on the lips. If it were normal, then what Lee Baiken did would definitely deepen the kiss, and maybe he would continue to do something else. But this time, Lee Baiken was frightened. He immediately pushed her away. What are you doing? Don't you know that I am sick now? What if you are really sick? You have to know that you have just given birth to a child not even a year ago, and your body is very fragile now. But when faced with Lee Baiken's anxiety, Sunian said calmly, what do you mean you are so anxious? Do you think the bacteria will reason with you? If you can really infect me, then I will do it. You must have infected me by now, and you still have to wait until now. When Sunian said this, she looked at him with disdain. Such a look really made Lee Baiken not know what to say. It really makes sense. This. Then Sunian pushed the person back without hesitation. If you really infect me, then just infect me directly. If you infect me and really make me sick, then it's okay. This can be a lesson to you, let you know that if you don't care about your body, it will affect me. Normally, you always say you love me, but when it comes to the critical moment, you are still like this, without any sense of responsibility as a man. Sunian said this deliberately, and even said it in a very evil voice. But I didn't expect that after saying this, I would see a smile on Lee Baiken's face. For some reason, Sunian became very angry when he saw Lee Baiken like this. Very angry. Just when Sunian wanted to say something, Lee Baiken's voice sounded again, I am really happy now. I am happy that you are threatening me with yourself. This proves that you know that you are very important in my heart. It really makes me happy to be able to think like this. But it would be better if Lee Baiken didn't say this. As soon as Lee Baiken said this, Sunian's face suddenly turned red. He stood up immediately and said, I don't think you are sick now. If you are sick, you are lying to me. In fact, you are not sick at all. Even if you are sick, then I hope God can make you seriously ill. After saying this, Sunian left aggressively. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. John Word. Chapter 862. Chapter 862, I wrote my anger on my forehead. Looking at Sunian's back as he left. Lee Baiken had no intention of pursuing him. He just looked on with a smile. Lee Baiken originally comforted himself. Even if Sunian doesn't love him, it doesn't matter. After all, he owed her a lifetime in his previous life. What you need to do in this life is to make up for it. There is no need to have too many requirements. But when he realized this, he was still very happy. That kind of happiness is truly beyond words. The kind that is super happy. Just look at the little woman's embarrassed look. Li Baikan really felt that he was favored by God. But Li Baikan felt that he really made Sunian angry this time. Perhaps I really have to stay alone in the empty house for a few days. But, Sunian still took care of him. However, Sunian didn't say anything during this period. Just like I'm angry, very angry was written directly on my forehead. Well, Li Baikan really wanted to coax him. But Sunian never gave Li Baikan a chance to coax him. Li Baikan slightly wanted to get closer to Sunian. Without thinking, Sunian said directly, "Don't come over. What if you get too close to me and you infect me? If I really get the infection, who will take care of you?" In such a situation, what else could Li Baikan say? However, Li Baikan still looked at Sunian deeply. Alright. If he hadn't been able to hear Sunian's inner voice, Li Baikan might have really been angry. Ahem, sometimes, Li Baikan really felt that it was good that he could hear Sunian's voice. In fact, Li Baikan's health was in good shape. Plus Sunian's care. Nature recovered quickly. However, Sunian still hopes that men can take care of themselves in bed. After all, the body is not a trivial matter. Li Baikan certainly has no objection to this. After all, as a smart man, he certainly knows not to make his wife angry now. If you really want to mess with it, then the time you spend sleeping alone may be extended indefinitely. Just when Li Baikan's health was about to recover, Mo Bao came to him. Normally I don't feel it, but when I saw Mo Bao, whom I hadn't seen for several days, I still missed him a little bit. So when he saw Mo Bao running towards him, he couldn't help calling softly, Mo Bao, come quickly, come to daddy quickly. After Li Baikan said this, Mo Bao took a few steps forward. But he didn't expect that when Mo Bao climbed up to Li Baikan, he directly hit Li Baikan with the doll in his hand. Li Baikan was a little confused after being hit. But after he came to his senses, he couldn't help but laugh a little. I really didn't expect that our Mo Bao would be so temperamental after we haven't seen each other for a few days. He would even hit Dad with something. Tell Dad, what's wrong with you? Unexpectedly, when Mo Bao heard this, he pointed directly at Li Baikan. Dad is bad, Dad is bad. Mo Bao, no matter how much Li Baikan loves Mo Bao, he still knows that there are some things that cannot be spoiled too much. If he is really spoiled too much, it is the kind of unconditional love. It is not a good thing for Mo Bao. Unexpectedly, Mo Bao was not afraid at all, and continued to say, Dad is bad, Dad is bad. If you don't listen to mother, you are bad. If it's something else, Li Baikan might continue to teach Mo Bao a lesson. But this matter is really a bit inexplicable. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 863. Chapter 863. A father who disobeys his mother is a bad father. Seeing a man deflated makes Mo Bao feel good. He is really a bad father if he doesn't listen to his mother. He is a bad father, huh? I don't know if it was Li Baikan's illusion, but he actually saw contempt in the child in front of him. So, if it were put in a shopping mall, or if it were another person, or even if it was another matter, then Li Baikan would know what to say. But now, being looked at like this by this brat, this made Li Baikan couldn't help but laugh, and then he reached out and planned to pull the child into his arms, but he didn't expect that before his hand touched the little guy's body, the little guy immediately took a few steps back. This is just naked disgust. Although Li Baikan knows very well that he can't have too much contact with his children now, he can't be disliked like this. And such disgust really made Lee Baikin a little confused about what to say. Although he knew very well that he could not compare with his mother in the child's heart, and he had never thought about comparing his status with Sunian, but such disgust was really a bit too much. I haven't seen my father in these days. Come on, don't you miss Dad? Come here and let Dad take a good look at you. But without thinking of Mo, he raised his head and cried. And more and more. Such a posture really frightened Lee Baikin. So under such circumstances, Sunian came in a hurry. Sunian walked directly to Mo, looked at Mo tenderly, and said to Mo, "What's wrong, honey? Why are you in a bad mood? Tell me." He saw Mo sobbing and said, "Dad is sick, why do you want to hug me? I don't want to take medicine, I don't want to." That's right, that's what Mo is. It is indeed good for Mo to be in the old house these days, but how good is the old house and how good is Grandpa? I have been very worried about this father these days. Although the father in this parallel time and space is different from the father he imagined in his previous life, he is still a little scared these days. Although after spending this year together, he knew that his father was in really good health, so such a small cold would definitely not cause him anything, but Mo was very worried. But how could he tell his grandfather that he wanted to come, but his grandfather wouldn't let him come? Such a situation made Mo very worried. It took a lot of effort to get here. But he didn't expect that what he saw would be his father's face glowing red. There is no so-called problem at all. Even Mo is really a little suspicious now. He suspects that his father has nothing to do with him and just wants to compete with him for favor, so he said such things to his mother. The more he thought about it, the more Mo felt that he was right. You must teach yourself a lesson as a father. Sunian smiled when she saw Mo's pitiful look. Mo, your father is disobedient and that's why you are sick. You may not know that your father has been very uncomfortable these days, so don't cause trouble for him now. Mom will take care of your father after he is well. When he heard this, Mo looked at his father again. Okay, I really saw something strange. Not as energetic as before. Lee Baikin deliberately coughed a few times when he felt his son's gaze. Such a simple cough made Mo feel bad immediately, and he hurriedly crawled to his father. Hand out to Daddy. Lee Baikin quickly bent down when he saw it. The slightly cold hand was placed on the man's face. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 864. Chapter 864. Mo knows everything. Lee Baikin looked at the little man. He saw worry in his small eyes. Then he said in a gentle voice, "Don't worry, Dad is fine. Your dad and I are very powerful. How could anything happen?" The gentle voice really made Mo smile. Lee Baikin then reached out and gently rubbed Mo's head. The father and son showed a rare warmth at this moment. Sunian next to him also laughed when he saw this scene. However, after the tenderness was over, Sunian still spoke, "Baikin, since there is nothing wrong with your health, I will take the child back to my old home." This time Lee Baikin's expression suddenly changed. You must know that in the past few days, considering his illness, Lee Baikin tried not to have too much contact with Sunian, which prevented him from getting close to Sunian. It's not that he really wants to do anything, he just wants Sunian to be in his arms. Just stay in your arms like this. These past few nights, thinking about Sunian, he couldn't help but feel a little itchy in his heart. Now that he heard this, he coughed decisively. When Mo saw this father, even if this guy was not pretending to be ill, Mo was sure that this man was definitely pretending to be ill. How could Sunian not see the man's thoughts? Because I can see it, so. What's wrong? Why are you coughing again? You've obviously recovered before. Why are you coughing again suddenly? Does your coughing like this mean that your condition has suddenly worsened again? That's terrible. If your condition worsens, what should I do? You can get Bao here. Okay, I will take Bao back to the old house now. After saying this, he held Bao in his arms and walked out. But this time Sunian was stopped before he even reached the door. Sunian was stopped and did not speak. Just looked at the man in front of him quietly. She wanted to know what this man wanted to do. You can leave, but have you forgotten something, Sunian? What is it? Sunian's face now seems to have writing written on it. Written, let me see what you want to do. This man won't say, has he forgotten me? I'm just waiting for this guy to say. When this guy says it, then I will say that I can't hold him according to the attitude in Mary Sue novels. Usually in such situations, the male protagonist comes to hug the female protagonist, and I will directly expose him and say that if you hug me, how can you get sick? That's right, that's what I said, just hit him back like this. Humph, do you really think of me as one of those ridiculous little girls? Lee Baiken. Well, Lee Baiken really wanted to do this. Since this is the case, then the only option is to change. So Lee Baiken took advantage of the little woman's distraction, lowered his head and kissed her lips. You took away my medicine, how can I get better? Sunian glared at the man fiercely when he reacted. This guy really went too far. The child is still here, how could he do this? Lee Baiken couldn't help but feel a little itchy in his heart when he saw Sunian's angry look. What do you mean, I took away your medicine, and what are you doing? You didn't see Bao still here. You are really going too far. What if you lead Bao to bad things? What can he understand now? Bao. He knows everything. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 865. Chapter 865 Separation of Man and Machine. Bao is really unhappy now. He knows everything. Why is this dad acting like this? It's really too much. But what can Bao do now? What else can be done? Cry. Be ready to cry immediately. But before Bao could cry this time, a big hand blocked his eyes. Well, if you are really worried, then I will cover his eyes like this next time, so that you won't be afraid. Sunian. Bao. It's really perfunctory. Lee Baiken took the child in Sunian's arms when she wasn't paying attention, and strode towards the outside with rapid strides. Give it directly to the servant when you get outside. Bao wanted to protest. But Lee Baiken spoke before Bao could speak. Bao, good boy, you have to play with yourself first. Dad accidentally made your mother angry. Now Dad needs to coax your mother. After saying that, he closed the door. So direct. Bao was really angry. What does this mean? What does he mean? This dad is really getting more and more annoying. Lee Baiken returned to Sunian again. You were right just now. It was indeed my negligence. It's okay now. No matter what we do, we will never bring bad luck to the children. I don't know why, but when Sunian heard the word bring evil, he felt some unspeakable taboo feeling. Sunian didn't want this man to succeed. She took a step back. Want to stay away from this hateful man. But he was taken directly into his arms by the man. What's wrong? Is it wrong for me to do this? If that's really the case, then my dear, can you tell me? I will follow your wishes to do it. I want you to get well soon. I have taken care of you for several days, but you show no sign of improvement at all. Please tell me, is it me who is useless, or is there something wrong with your body? I let you pretend, yes, I am going to tear off this guy's skin today. Even if this guy is really a beast in clothes now, then I can still tear off this guy's skin. It's none of this, it's the heart. Heart. Sunian's eyes narrowed slightly when he heard this. It looks like I want to see what you want to come up with. I really feel like I have a heart disease now. After all, if I didn't have a heart disease, why would I have left you? My heart is so flustered, really powerful. If you don't believe it, then you can touch my heart. Although Sunian discovered the books in Lee Baikin's study and destroyed, but he has finished reading them all and has almost engraved them all in his heart. So some things are really easy to do. Very convenient. But the next moment, Lee Baikin's expression changed. Because he heard. Why does this sentence sound familiar? It really looks like the advertising slogan of 8888 Gold mobile phone. Automatic alarm when human and machine are separated. Human machine, ahem, what does it mean? Sunian's face suddenly turned red. Such a blush fell into Lee Baikin's eyes. It really made Lee Baikin reluctant to leave his side for a moment. But, this separation of man and machine. It really makes people unable to control themselves and want to have the so-called reverie. However, Lee Baikin is indeed a person who has been in the shopping mall for many years, and he quickly reacted. Immediately he caught the person in his arms. Are you really willing to let your husband feel uncomfortable? Do you know what it feels like to have a heartache? That feeling is indescribable in words. When Lee Baikin said this, he thought of that time Huo Linyuan tried to steal Sunian's heart. That was the first time in his life that he realized that this woman could not disappear from his life. Maybe it's the prayers from the past life, maybe it's, in short, everything seems to be destined. Thinking of this, Lee Baikin smiled and picked him up. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 866. Chapter 866 Lin Pingzi, Did I Give You Face? SY Company announced to hire designers at high prices. And the expansion of company buildings at the speed of light. Carried out a series of measures. Coupled with the news about some previous bribes, everyone understood that these two women, Sunian and Sun Ying-er, were not simple, and they didn't know what they were planning. Started to think of ways to find out. But at the beginning, everyone thought that Sunian and Sun Ying-er were just having fun. Even various wealthy families felt that the two of them were simply too willful and a little overestimating their abilities. After all, what are Huo Linyuan's methods? What they did before can even be said to be riding on Huo Linyuan's head. How could Huo Linyuan let it go? Some people even wanted to see the two of them making fun of each other. But I didn't expect that. I didn't see the joke, but I saw their company rising steadily. The trend is now. Lee Baikin really loves Sunian too much. Sunian's methods are really superb. Not only can it make Lee Baikin change his mind. And she was able to let Lee Baikin protect her like this. Such words were really speechless when they reached Sunian's ears. What's the matter? How does it feel to be protected by your husband? Sun Ying-er teased Sunian, who was speechless. Sunian smiled expressionlessly, but I was always protected by my father before. The reason why Sunian was so speechless was because her character was previously doted on by Li Jianhong, the father-in-law, but now Lee Baikin was replaced, and she had such a big reaction. This is the logic of a Mary Sue novel, and I really disagree with it. Sun Ying-er didn't expect this, so she was a little stunned. But she reacted and smiled. I wouldn't know if you didn't tell me. You were so protected by the old man before. Even without Baikin, your current treatment will not be too bad. Sunian nodded. Sun Ying-er thought of the old man. Hey, luckily your old man is not here. If your old man hears this, he will definitely be very depressed. After Sun Ying became sisters with Sunian, she also became familiar with everyone in the Li family. Of course I know what the old man's temperament is. Just like to have a sense of presence. When she first realized this, Sun Ying was really a little unbelievable. The reason why I say that? It's because in her eyes, the old man of the Li family is the kind of person who can turn his hands into clouds and rain. In the previous generation, it was so hard that everyone could hardly breathe. But now she is told that this old man is just an ordinary little old man. This feeling is really hard to describe. It's weird anyway. When Sunian heard this, he thought of his father-in-law's temperament, and immediately smiled. Also agree with it a little bit. At this moment, a loud noise suddenly sounded. You Lin Pingzi, have I given you face? If I don't break your old bones, then I will take your surname Lin. This voice, why is it so familiar? Sunian hurried over. Unexpectedly, she saw her good father-in-law dragging Mr. Lin. Mr. Lin did not expect that Li Jianhong would take action at this time. You, what are you doing? Don't forget, what kind of place is this? You can't mess around here. If you mess around here, then. But when Li Jianhong heard this, he sneered, Lin Pingzi, why are you so cowardly? You and I are both people who have their necks buried in loess, why do you care about your face? End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Zhang Word. Chapter 867. Chapter 867. The old man is in good spirits. In such a situation, Sunian, as the daughter-in-law, would definitely go up and persuade her. So I walked up quickly. But unexpectedly, before Sunian could reach the old man's side, he heard his voice, Nian, I know what you want to say and what you want to persuade. You'd better forget it. I won't deal with this well today, guy, then my surname is not Li. What else can Sunian do? It can only be stopped. She looked at the old man like this. In his last life, after Li Baikan's death, his health was getting better day by day, and he was not in such good spirits at all. It's really good now. Mr. Lin, old man Li, let me go. You are shameless and I want shame. You stole the chess piece yesterday and you still don't admit it? Do you really think I'm a fool? Haha, you are either a fool or something. Even if I stole it, why didn't you say it then? Why are you saying it now? If you can't afford to lose, just say you can't afford to lose. What does this mean? I don't dislike you. Why do you if you want to look like this? Isn't it embarrassing for you to look like this? Who is embarrassed? You tell me who is embarrassed. Today I have to have a good argument with you. I want you, an old man, to be convinced. At this time, a plaintive voice sounded in Sunian's ears, Mrs. Li, are you really not going to do anything, and are you really not worried about your old man? When Sunian heard this, he turned his head and looked at the person next to him. Saw Lin Na naturally. Then she heard Lin Na let out a long sigh, but that's right, your old man doesn't suffer either, it's my old man who suffers. These words made Sunian's face look slightly ugly. After all, there is no difference between this and your family, which are not good people. Then what are you going to do, Miss Lin? How are you going to control your father? Do you want to reprimand me? But it is logical for Miss Lin to do this. After all, there is a saying that the older a person is, the more he becomes like a child. You can scold me like a child, but that doesn't mean anything. These words really made Lin Na's face look a little ugly. After all, Lin Na had no intention of blaming her. Just wanted to talk to Sunian. But now even if we strike up a conversation, it seems like there is nothing to say. So what else can Lin Na do now? She can only sigh helplessly, hey, I just complained a little and felt sorry for my dad. Why are you so aggressive, Mrs. Lee? Aggressive? Why do you think you are aggressive? Miss Lin, please explain to me why I am so aggressive. I am really a little disappointed with you now, Miss Lin. After all, in my eyes, Miss Lin is very different, but there is no thinking about it. You really let me down now. After Sunian finished speaking, the whole audience exclaimed. But this level of exclamation seems to be a level that can cause exclamation without speaking. Sunian couldn't help but feel tense. When I turned my head, I didn't expect that my father-in-law would actually push him to the ground and beat him. Why is the old man so passionate? Immediately walked to Li Jianhong's side. Dad, don't be angry. But he didn't expect that Li Jianhong smiled directly. Why should I be angry? It's other people's business to be angry. Lin Pingzi, have I given you face during this time and made you so arrogant? Haha, if I don't let you know what it means to be awesome. Such a posture really frightened Sunian. Suddenly, people from both sides began to pull away quickly. Hurry and persuade. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Which John Word. Chapter 868. Chapter 868. It's getting colder, and the Lin family should go bankrupt. Li Baikan, the son, of course arrived at the scene in the shortest possible time. Li Baikan smiled when he saw his father's embarrassed look. For Li Jianhong, being laughed at by his own son can be said to be more uncomfortable than killing him. So I asked directly, what's your attitude? Are you happy to see your father injured? What's going on with you? Why are you so unfilial? If you really feel embarrassed, then why did you do this? Li Baikan was very calm in the face of the old man's accusation. What are you talking about? When did I feel embarrassed? I am your father. At such an old age, I can't do what I want. Do you think your father is embarrassed? Haha, you are really a little stiff now. But Li Baikan shook his head. No, I don't think so. He's just an old man. He just beats him. There's nothing he can't afford. Just be happy. What's the point? I always got into trouble when I was young. What's the point of protecting me? Besides, as a son, if I can't even do this, then the other son is really too bad. By that time, you really have to jump and scold me. I don't know why, but Li Jianhong felt there was something wrong with this statement. But I really couldn't tell what the problem was for a while. Li Baikan actually thought it was nothing, so he just beat him. Isn't it bad for a son to see his father lively and energetic? Moreover, the Lin family provoked their own father in such a scene. Is there really nothing here? Although Li Baikan thought this matter was nothing, he still checked the surveillance video before coming over. Looked at the whole development of the matter. He felt a little strange. The reason why he felt a little strange was because he was seeing Mr. Lin's granddaughter. It seems to be called Lin Na. I think Lin Na is a little weird. But there is no need to say this, he will handle it well. Okay, don't be angry. If you really think there is a problem, then I, the son, can only take action against the Lin family. After all, the weather is getting colder, and the Lin family should go bankrupt. Sunianze, who was comforting Li Jianhong next to him, almost choked to death when he heard these words. Shit, this is the boss's quotation. At this time, Sunian glanced at Li Baikan. Well, he is indeed a complete domineering president. But this sentence is really very good, even if it comes from Li Baikan's mouth, it is very good. Maybe it is because I have read a lot of novels, and I am really a little PTSD about the quotations from these novels. When Li Baikan heard this, many fragments appeared in his mind. Well, there are too many of, which is a bit bad. This is a bit bad. Although Li Jianhong was angry, he still felt a little bad when he heard this. After all, he and that old man Lin just had a little personal grudge, there was really nothing special about it. If something really happened to the Lin family because of this sedative would be a bit too much. Why not? You are my Li Baikan's father. You can do anything. After all, as I just said, if I can't do this as my son's face, then I'm really a bit of a son. What a failure. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 869. Chapter 869, Draw a Pie for the Old Man. But when Li Baikan finished saying these words, the atmosphere in the room suddenly became low. It even feels like dripping water turning into ice. Sunian felt that the atmosphere was like this and wanted to say something to relieve it a little. But before Sunian could say anything, Li Baikan walked up to her and whispered a few times in Sunian's ear. Sunian nodded when he heard this and walked outside. Soon only the father and son were left in the room. Li Baikan sighed, "Dad, when you see me getting married and having children, do you think your mission is accomplished?" Li Jianhong was slightly stunned when he heard this. He looked at Li Baikan. And Li Baikan only remembered it now. I seem to really ignore this father. After his death in his last life, his whole body seemed to collapse, like a deflated ball. It could even be said that his ability to survive until Mo Bao grew up was already his limit. Are you really not afraid that I will lead Mo Bao as a bad actor? You know that you have said that ever since I can remember, it's a pity that you were too busy back then. If you weren't so busy back then, you would definitely bring me to your side, you would definitely teach me well, so that I won't do such things. Now I am also busy with my daily work, and I don't have time to properly discipline Mo Bao. Do you really want Mo Bao to become the second me? If that's really the case, then... Li Baikan was interrupted before he finished his words. What do you mean? Mo Bao will become the second you. Mo Bao is so obedient, how could he be like you, a brat? Don't insult me, Mo Bao. If you are really insulting, then I will really be rude to you. I'm telling the truth. Our family hasn't had a daughter for many years. Don't you really want me and Nian Nian to work hard so that you can hold your granddaughter? Now Mo Bao is so cute and smart. If a little girl is here, it might be more honorable for you to take her out, don't you think about that? These words directly made Li Jianhong's face change. Li Jianhong knew what Sunian looked like when he was young. So Li Baikan's words that he is not moved can really be said to be false. After a moment, Li Jianhong smiled, "You brat, you are the father of the child, why do you do this? Come here to lie to me, a little old man, don't you really think it's a bit cruel? How can I say that I lied to you? What you said is a bit unpleasant. Nian Nian and I are both in our prime. If we think about it, it will only take a matter of minutes and it is not a difficult matter." What do you mean? Li Jianhong immediately started to smile and shook his head. You brat really know how to talk. In fact, I also understand what you mean. You are just afraid that I will do something stupid. To be honest, I really want to your mother, I'm really a little scared now. I'm afraid what will happen if your mother forgets me down there, after all, it's been such a long time. Li Baikan looked at his father. Want to say something? But it's really a bit weird for the men to say comforting words to each other. The weird feeling is really hard to describe. After a long time, he spoke, I heard from others that a granddaughter is more like a grandma. Do you really not want her? Indeed, Li Baikan didn't want Sunianze to suffer. But, Li Jianhong didn't know about this either, so it wasn't impossible to write a bad check. After all, as a father-in-law, he cannot take the initiative to ask his daughter-in-law. So it's okay. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 870. Chapter 870 The Old Man's Knot. Lee Ji-eunhong looked at his son. Since Mo Bao was born, he really felt a little relaxed. Feeling very relaxed. But such a relaxed feeling is really a bit like having nothing to do. Let him have no purpose. So today, I have no sense. After all, he has everything most people want. As if this world does not require you to feel it yourself. The more this happened, the more he thought of the woman who had been away from him for a long time. That kind of missing is really getting more and more. Thinking crazily. Baiken, don't forget, my mother once said before she left that she hopes you can live to be 60. If you really die early, my mother will definitely be angry according to her temperament. But you know how terrible my mother is when she is angry. If you go down now, you will definitely not have a good life, and I am not by your side. Hey, Dad, you are also a smart person. Lee Ji-eunhong was not talking, but looked at Lee Baiken quietly. The reason for this is that Lee Ji-eunhong really did not expect that Lee Baiken would say this to him. You must know that both father and son are men, so the two of them rarely communicate. After all, the two of them really couldn't say anything good. Can't maintain it as well as women. So Lee Baiken's words this time really surprised Lee Ji-eunhong. However, it is really not suitable for men to talk too much. If you talk too much, including persuading too much, it will appear too insensitive. Okay, stop talking. If you say this, if you don't know, then you think I will do something stupid. Don't think that I don't know what you mean. Get out of here. If you don't get out of here, I'm really going to beat you. You have a son now. Would you feel embarrassed if you let Mo Bao know that you were beaten by your grandfather? Lee Baiken knew it was almost done after saying this. I then walked outside. After the others have completely left, Lee Ji-eunhong took out his mobile phone and clicked on the photo album. Looking at the photo, Lee Ji-eunhong couldn't help but sigh, hey, that brat from Baiken really deserves to be the one you gave birth to. He's so smart, and he's so quick to comfort me. I really can't help but feel sorry for him. Know what to do. Lee Ji-eunhong paused slightly when he said this. I understand what he meant, but I want to ask you, after so many years, do you really not miss me? Even just a little bit. Do you really not miss me? When Lee Ji-eunhong said this, his eyes became slightly moist. I don't know what you are thinking, but I miss you very much. I miss you all the time. The key is that I am afraid. I am afraid that if I don't live to see you at the age you said, what will you do if you get angry? It's been so many years, but I don't know if your temper has changed. What should I say? I really don't want your temper to change. As long as you are happy, that's fine. But, I really miss you. Outside the door. When Lee Baiken heard this, he was slightly silent. Then he picked up his steps and continued walking. Actually, there are some things that are a little cruel to say. If the world they are in is really just a world of fiction, if the world he is in at the moment is really just a girl's imagination. So, it's really a bit cruel. End of this chapter.